He deserved it.
Hi, good evening. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Rob, second Jim. Any questions? All in favor? 7-0. Mr. Poole, Superintendent's report.
Good evening, and thank you. Welcome, everybody. Start off with the high school. Start with a thank you to the staff and community members in the junior, senior class for their auction on Saturday night. Amazing job getting ready for it, and as usual, tremendous generosity from the local community and businesses. So good to have that auction back in place. I have to give a congratulations to the students who performed at Coffee House this past Friday. What a great show, amazing performances, one and all. There was a lot of hidden talent in the high school. The MCs, Mr. Lane and Mr. Flatley, were hilarious. And I have to give a special mention to Mr. Holonia for his participation in the limbo contest, which was absolutely
Good sport.
good, very good. It did end with a pie in the face. So, and Mr. Pugliese as the Wildcat mascot. So, but it was great to have that tradition back. One of the oldest traditions in the high school back last week, with all students able to attend and watch. Give a congratulations to a couple of our high school student artists who have their work displayed at the Long Island Museum in Stony Brook. Junior Emily DeRoche and freshman Anna Marino are participating in the museum's Colors of Long Island student artwork exhibition in the Visitor Center Gallery, and their works are showcased along with colorful pieces from dozens of talented K-12 students on the island. So congratulations to those two students as students continue to excel in art. Today we announced and invited the families and the two students at the high school. Very proud and like to congratulate the valedictorian of the class of 2022, Lauren Holden, and the salutatorian, Eric Epp. And congratulations to those two students. Halloran, excuse me. Lauren Halloran, sorry, and Eric Epp. Great work by them. I know we'll have Lauren and Eric back to another meeting to recognize their accomplishments. While I'm at the high school, I do want to make note that it's almost complete. We are installing a stop arm for the entrance to the high school parking lot up on the drive going into the parking lot. That should be completed this week. I know the Health and Safety Committee will be reviewing those protocols this week, and that stop arm will be implemented shortly after that. Congratulations to our Prodell music students. 12 student musicians from the Prodell Middle School took part in the Skamia's All-County Music Festival this past week at Ward Melville High School. Mr. Samante, who serves as the Skamia East Division Festival's Assistant Vice President, attended, so congratulations to 6th grade vocalist Lila Granshaw, May Reed Jaffe, and Adelina Villa, who were selected to participate in the Division I East Course, and vocalist Jake Donnelly, Gabriella Gallagher, Ava Hernandez, Riley Keneally, Anthony Mango, Olivia Pesso, Charles Tacky, Forrest Teppenhart, and Timothy Worthington were selected to participate in the Division II East Course. So congratulations to those students. Over at Prodell, upcoming this week, all of our 8th grade health students will be learning how to save a life in class. They'll be learning CPR and the use of an AED this week and next. That is a requirement at the high school level, but something that we do for safety at the middle school level. Some great stuff happening in regards to literacy at the Prodell Library. 7th grade ELA students are, while reading The Outsiders, are working on other pivotal events in the 1960s, working on library inquiry, citing sources, note-taking, using Canva, and generating shared hyperdocs while they read The Outsiders. 6th grade students in the library are beginning independent research projects, digging deep into informational literacy skills, using Noodle tools to build digital bibliographies and note cards, And the Big Read is ongoing in the library for the students. And I mentioned students at the middle school were raising resources and donations for Ukraine, and I hear they've collected 14 boxes of donations for Ukraine. At Wading River, this week, I had a chance to see it this week, fourth graders participated in an interactive hands-on workshop with somebody from the Cultural Arts Program to deepen their understanding of all aspects of the native peoples of the Eastern Woodlands and Plains through a special arts and ed program. There has been just in our elementaries in general, walking around, it is wonderful to see carpets out, students at rug time, groups of students working together in there, and good to see some of the PE activities back. So I know in the Wading River Gym this week, the Swinging into Tarzan unit in phys ed is back, where students work individually and cooperatively to overcome various, let's call them swinging challenges. Lots of ropes hanging in the Wading River Gym this week. And excitingly, the fifth graders are heading to Philadelphia on Friday, which is wonderful news. Look forward to hearing about that trip. Over at Miller Avenue, the Student Council, that is a very ambitious K through second grade student council at Miller Avenue. They held a St. Patrick's Day pop-up shop and raised $936 for Happy Trails Animal Rescue. So great job by the Student Council at Miller Avenue. And I know Miller Avenue students were surprised last week by some green footprints and green glitter as they celebrated St. Patrick's Day and integrated that into their into learning. For sports, just I know we'll have winter sports here to recognize as well, but some shout outs to the girls basketball team, some recognitions. They brought home several honors from the Suffolk County Women's Basketball Coaches Association Awards Night. Student athlete Sophie Costello was honored with All-League and All-County. Carly Cutinella received Academic All-County and Unsung Hero. Grace Ann Leonard received All-League and All-County honors, and Annie Sheen was named All-League, and Coach Adam Livre was named League 6 Coach of the Year. So congratulations to all of them. And the communication survey I mentioned last week will be released this week. Promise everybody, please take it. It's 3 minutes. It's going to help us further our strategic planning goals towards improving and growing effective communication in the school district. So I thank everyone in advance for taking part of that. And tonight is our third budget presentation. This should get us through all of the budget categories in advance, hopefully, of the final state budget adoption in early April, which means we come back on the 12th, we'd be able to review the budget, including the revenue budget, at that time. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Do we have any opportunity for board members?
Katie, real quick, so I just wanted to send my appreciation out. On Sunday, had the opportunity to attend the girls lacrosse. I think it was considered more of a community programs.
Kickoff?
What's that?
A kickoff?
Yeah, I think it was a kickoff, if you will. It was really a nice event in which we had the entire program. I think it was Mr. Jim Lockhart that arranged it and put it all together. So I just wanted to send that out and let them know we appreciate it. And it was great to see the families and the girls, all their teams together, and just having a good sports day, if you will, as families. And then obviously with the new head lacrosse coach, it was great to see Ms. Femmel obviously hosting it. So it's great to see the whole program and it coming together for the community. So just wanted to recognize that. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any statements from residents? No. No? Okay. Now we're on to student staff recognitions. We have Mr. Puglisi here to introduce the advisors of the National History Day Club.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson, Board of Education, Mr. Poole, District Office Administration. Always a pleasure to be here, especially on nights when I get to introduce some amazing staff and an even more amazing student. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to bring up Mrs. Maria Lavasco and Mr. Michael Buscemi, who are the co-advisors of the National History Day Club.
Good evening. My name is Michael Buscemi. I'm a special education teacher here at the high school, and I'm one of the proud co-advisors of the Shoreham-Wading River High School National History Day Club. For those of you who don't know, National History Day is an annual contest that challenges students across our nation to reflect on a standard theme in history. This year, students were asked to explore a topic in history that dealt with debate and diplomacy throughout history, successes, failures, and consequences. So students could select any topic of their choosing, provided it was connected to the national theme. Student submissions could be created in the form of a paper, a website, a bifold presentation, or as a short film. The students that were interested could also submit their research finding to the local Long Island History Day organization, where teachers from across Long Island would judge the students' submissions and offer some constructive feedback. So this year, as part of our club, we had a number of students that conducted initial research into topics connected to the theme. These students spent time after school in our club meetings and over long weekends researching diverse topics that both appealed to them and connected to the national theme. Of these students, we had one student that advanced their research to the level that would allow them to submit their findings to be judged as part of the local Long Island History Day organization. I'd like to introduce my co-advisor, Mrs. Maria Lavasco, to speak a little bit more about that student.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Maria Lavasco. I teach social studies here at the high school. I've been one of the co-advisors for the National History Day Club for, I'm going to say 3-4 years, something like that. This is my first year working with Mr. Buscemi, and it's been fantastic having his expertise in the field in not only American history, but global history as well. It's been fantastic to have him on board as my partner. The student that I'm about to introduce is not only a fantastic historian, she is also a golfer, a runner, an AP scholar. She's a student in our capstone program. She also challenges herself outside of the classroom as just being a fantastic friend to so many. I was kind of interviewing some of her friends before, and some of the words that they were just using to describe her was genuine, authentic, hardworking. So obviously the attributes that I love to see in my students themselves, but really what we look for in a student who you're going to be working with so closely throughout the school year. Mr. Buscemi and I have been working really two-on-one with Melanie for quite some time to really hone in on her project and make it ready not only for the Long Island History competition, but hopefully for the competitions beyond. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Melanie Hagan.
Hi, my name is Melanie Hagan, and I have been a part of National History Day since 8th grade. I want to thank Mrs. Lavasco and Mr. Buscemi for all their help researching my project this year. My project this year, I researched the Supreme Court case Buck versus Bell. The eugenics movement began in the late 19th century and was the spread of the idea that eliminating certain traits through selective breeding would result in the perfect human race. These ideas eventually led to the creation of the term feeble-mindedness, which describes a person who is perceived to have a disability. Carrie Buck was born in July of 1906 in Charlottesville, Virginia. Her father had left the family and her mother was institutionalized at the Virginia State Colony. Carrie was put into the foster system and at the age of 3 was adopted by John and Alice Dobbs. Carrie lived a normal life until she was raped at the age of 17 by Alice Dobbs' nephew. In denial, the Dobbs family had her institutionalized at the Virginia State Colony for feeble-mindedness and promiscuity. In 1924, the Eugenical Sterilization Act was passed in Virginia, which allowed for the sterilization of incompetent individuals. However, many institutions, including the Virginia colony, were concerned about the constitutionality of the law. They were concerned that the law was violating the 14th Amendment, which granted legal rights to all U.S. citizens. Amidst all these concerns, the Virginia State Colony petitioned to have Carrie Buck sterilized in order to bring her case to the Supreme Court. In the Buck versus Bell case, it was argued that sterilizing Carrie Buck and feeble-minded individuals as a whole would greatly benefit the public. However, the state colony had to go to great lengths in order to ensure this verdict. Almost all the individuals in court were corrupt or biased to the state colony's case. For example, Irving P. Whitehead, Carrie's attorney, was good friends with and worked alongside Dr. Albert Priddy, who was the superintendent of the state colony. Also, Dr. Harry Laughlin was a witness who claimed that he examined Carrie and deemed her an imbecile. However, Dr. Laughlin never met Carrie. Also, most of the evidence used during the case was flawed. For example, Vivian Dobbs, who was Carrie's daughter, claimed to be an imbecile. However, Vivian got straight A's in school. It was ruled that Carrie Buck should be sterilized for the betterment of society. Their main argument was that it would protect the general society from degeneracy. They claimed that 3 generations of imbecile was enough to have a legal right to sterilize an individual. By the end of the 1930s, 2,000 to 4,000 individuals were sterilized. By 1960, over 60,000 individuals had been sterilized. These sterilization laws continued until 1981, but there was no apology for these individuals until 2001 when the state colony finally apologized.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for coming out tonight and sharing your report with us. It's very impressive. Well done.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Puglisi coming to introduce Mrs. Wallbauer to introduce Delphi's Quill Award recipients.
Nicole, come on up. That's an easy one for me.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Nicole Wallbauer, Director of Humanities. We're here tonight to recognize some very talented authors, Caitlin Roberts and Andrea Castillo-Manas. Ms. Tren, their advisor for journalism, was unable to be here tonight, but she does send her regards and her regrets. Caitlin and Andrea had their articles submitted for consideration by Ms. Tren to the Quill Awards, which are presented at the end of Adelphi's Press Day Scholastic Journalism field trip. Both articles were selected for their quality of reporting and use of voice. In addition, both articles received high praise and garnered attention following the distribution of Shoreham-Wading River's first print issue of the Wildcat Pause in November. Andrea's article, The Concern for Long Island's Future, provides a look into the amount of waste and water pollution the island is facing. Ms. Tren was immediately struck by Andrea's quality of writing and photography. We're so proud of Andrea for winning 3rd place in the opinion category. Both journalists competed against student journalists from some of the top schools on Long Island, many of whom have been reporting for many years, while our students are both in their 1st year of journalism. Caitlin's article, Uniformed Injustice, Sexism Rooted in Athletic Uniforms, immediately caught the attention of students and teachers alike when the first issue dropped. Her attention to detail was particularly notable. We're here tonight to congratulate both of our student journalists. You've made your peers, your teacher, the program, your school, and the district, and I'm sure the parents who are here tonight, very, very proud. Congratulations to Caitlin and Andrea. I believe Caitlin is here tonight. You want to come on up, Caitlin? But I don't think Andrea is here. No, Andrea.
Caitlin, if you could come up on the stage, we'll just have your picture taken. And Melanie, if you don't mind coming up right after Caitlin, that would be great too. And we have pins for you, and we'll take a photo with the superintendent.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
thank you again to our advisors and our students for taking time out of their studies and their busy schedules to present to us and to be congratulated here. Really appreciate it. Next up, we have old business. Mr. Poole, regarding the policy committee meeting dates.
Yes, at our last meeting, we had some conversations about, since we're embarking on the full review of the policy manual, and we've been meeting quite frequently about making the meetings maybe at a better time, more accessible. So at our last policy committee meeting with trustees and the committee, came up with a recommendation to move to 3 more meetings for the school year, one on April 7th, one on May 12th for the committee, the other on June 9th. We'll start them a little bit later, we'll have them a little bit longer, and the goal will be to cover the same amount of materials in fewer meetings and hopefully make that a little more accessible for additional trustees to come and attend policy meetings. Those dates are, I know the district clerk will reach out and see if we can get full participation on April 7th, May 12th, and June 9th. These are scheduled to start at 5:30 p.m. and likely go to about 8 o'clock. So 5:30 to 8 on those 3 nights, and that should keep us going for the rest of the school year. We're working our way through the 2000s, so we're making progress as we work through the full manual.
Mr. Poole, do you have an idea at each of those meetings how many policies we're trying to get through? Is there like a goal by the end of this year right now?
You know, some of the policies, like a Title I parent involvement policy is like 8 pages long, so that maybe that's paired with another longer policy that could take some time to do. The recent batch of policies that are on for a first read tonight, where those are board operations and board governance and the rules of the road, basically, for the board and empowering them to act as a body. Those were shorter, a paragraph or two, so we were able to get through in the hour and a half, 5 or 6 of those policies, review them, have a good discussion, and make some drafts for the larger board. So we try to, prior to that committee meeting, take a look at them administratively to make some recommendations based off of the policy recommendations from the municipal service. And then looking at those, working with district clerks, say, okay, this looks like this will be about 2.5 hours. So we try to sort of have a couple in reserve, but try to get enough that we can fill up the 2.5 hours. So.
Well, I think it's a good suggestion. I think it's a good change because I know we had some challenges in getting folks there. I'm good with all 3 of these dates, so I'll just put it out there. If anyone needs coverage, I'm available because the evenings work for me. So.
Thanks, Tom.
So what's the next process? What's the next step? Are we?
Next step is going to be, Stephanie's going to reach out to all of us to cover those dates, like put the dates are in the email, so maybe we can just reach out with our availability, and then I guess first come, first serve.
So everyone will take one, or we'll rotate everyone through. So I know Megan's taking the most of the meetings, and maybe she should have a month or 2 off, and we can kind of step in there. But the thought is to rotate. So it's the 7 of us. So we should. If I'm in April, then I shouldn't go back till June, just so everyone has. Okay.
I think the anticipation is that if we do 1 meeting a month, all the board trustees are going to be able to participate at some point. So instead of just keeping it to the 3 trustees that signed up for policy committee, the other trustees are going to be able to jump in also. So if we could get like 3 trustees per each meeting, even if they're different trustees, if the other 3 who signed up for the policy committee can't make it. So it would be Megan, Rob, and Jim first, and then if the other trustees, if either one of them can't make it, then other trustees can jump in and say,
Okay. All right, thank you. Next up, we have our budget presentation, the remainder of the 2022-2023 budget by Mr. Arcuri.
Good evening. Tonight we are presenting the 3rd budget presentation related to the 2022-2023 expenditure budget. As I've been starting off the meetings, is to show the programs that are funded with the federal grant funds for the 2022-2023 school year. The during the school day programs, the full-time elementary math academic interventionist, the the 0.5 elementary reading teacher, the district-wide psychologist, additional instructional technology resources, the high school mentor positions. Some of the federal grant funds are used to cover the cost of the universal pre-K program that the state funding is not sufficient to cover, and additional outdoor educational field experiences. Pertaining to capital projects, the creation of the Academic Success Center inside of the high school, the outdoor learning environments in all 4 buildings, and for extracurricular programs, English as a new language enrichment and support opportunities, special education summer programs, summer science research program, summer rise theater program. For 2022-2023, all of these programs are going to be funded with the federal grant funds. Now, as we begin to look at the 23-24 school year, we will either look to fold some of these programs into that budget, but then there will be additional funding needed. But it's just always important to identify what is being covered by the general fund, the taxpayers' budget that they vote on, versus what programs we are offering that are being funded with funds other than the voter-approved budget, known as the general fund. 22-23 budget overview maintains all of the current programming, increases the number of high school course offerings, restructures the middle school from an 8-period day to a 9-period day, provides for a second nurse at each building, and improves the elementary library program by adding a shared librarian between the 2 elementary schools. Similar to previous budgets, the 22-23 budget is aligned to our strategic plan themes. A little bit of budget and tax levy history. The 5-year average of the expenditure budget increase from 17-18 to 21-22 is 2.13%, and the tax levy percentage increase, the 5-year average is 1.15%. The last 5 years for the tax levy, the average increase from 17-18 to 2021-2022 is a little bit less than $560,000 per year. It's also important to note that 2 of the 5 years there was the district did not levy to the full limit, so that is a recurring tax savings to the taxpayer. Proposition 1, 2022-2023 expenditure budget reflects a 2.95% increase, or a dollar increase of $2,381,992. On March 8th, we covered the first 2 categories, which was approximately 72.13% of the total budget. The presentations from the March 8th meeting as well as the March 15th meeting can be found on the district website. On March 15th, we covered 21%, which were categories transportation, debt and transfers, special education, and district-wide expenses. And this evening, we're going to cover the remaining 6.86% and cover the facilities category, technology, curriculum and staff development, athletics, community programs, health services, and personnel. With regard to the facilities budget, the budget amounts for specific utilities and maintenance contracts have been adjusted to align with the current projections. With the exception of the fuel costs, which are dramatically changing regularly, all other contracts have been accounted for. All other utility carding has all been increased by what we anticipate the projected increases to be. One-time equipment purchases have been reduced. We have bolstered up our building and maintenance fleet. The vehicles are new. The equipment has been recently replaced. So the reduction inside of one-time equipment purchases isn't going to come at a cost of something that actually needed to be replaced. So I think we're in very good shape when it comes to the equipment for the facilities department. It does provide funding to purchase replacement vacuums, field paint stripe machine, a utility trailer that can be used for the grounds department, tables and chairs, industrial floor equipment, as well as other small items. The large decrease in this particular category is a $625,000 decrease related to one-time maintenance project budgets. Majority of this relates to the increase that the district received in state aid when New York State adopted their final budget, April 2021. We received approximately $478,000 additional dollars inside of building aid, and at that time, we had added and increased the a one-time maintenance budget. So there is a reduction there. It will not affect imminent needed projects, but we do feel there is still sufficient money inside of the budget to cover the needed projects that need to be addressed in the 2022-2023 school year. Some of those projects are replacing ceiling and lighting replacements in a few locations, replacements of 2 sets of exterior doors, and as well as additional cameras throughout the buildings. Buildings and grounds improvements include parking lot seal coating and striping at the high school, irrigation repairs, softball backstop replacement at the middle school, as well as tree pruning and asphalt repairs at certain locations throughout the 4 buildings. As I mentioned earlier, utility costs are still going to be a variable. The possibility does exist that we will have to cover that from other budget codes if the utility costs do not begin to flatten out. The 22-23 budget is a $621,032 decrease over the previous year, which is a 17.45% reduction, and this category accounts for a little bit more than 3.5% of the total budget. The technology budget. Proposed budget maintains all program services from the 2021-2022 school year. Maintenance, support, and warranties, all contractual related increases regarding the network system, the firewall, the website, database services, user licenses, GoGuardian, including Beacon. The budget includes increases related to increased backup and restoration services, maintenance and licensing costs for the video surveillance and door access system. It's important to point out for that particular system, we are in its 4th year for the 22-23 school year. We had 3 years where the maintenance was fully covered. So this is the first year that we had to increase the technology budget to cover that maintenance and licensing costs. So the first 3 years were part of the original implementation of that project. So that actually was a rather large increase. That was about $88,000 increase to the technology budget. Enhanced cybersecurity measures, additional subscriptions and licenses related to digital learning, lease payments related to replacement Chromebooks. As we are a K-12 Chromebook program, we always have to consider how many devices are going to be reaching their useful life in order to replace those. Entering into a leasing program utilizing Eastern Suffolk BOCES has been very beneficial to the district. It is a clean process, it's a cycle process, and it is cheaper than buying the units outright. Over the next two next two budget years, we have 2 more sets of lease payments that we have to add into the budget in order to have 4 lease payments that are going to allow us to continually cycle through all of the Chromebooks for the K-12 as well as the staff. Reduction in contracted services for IT support, network segmentation and exchange server upgrade, increased storage capacity for data and video archiving, as well as multi-factor authentication for network access. I'm sure on some of your home accounts, you see that in order to access a certain site, you either need a code sent to your phone, you need a fob, you need a token number. It's really becoming another means of keeping out the possible fear of a cyber attack. So we are rolling out multi-factor authentication based on an exposure level. So there's an initial group now, there'll be another group inside of 22-23, and possibly yet even a larger group in 23-24. It's all based on the user's rights inside of the district's network. Total budget for 22-23 for technology, $1,808,357. A dollar increase of a little bit more than $500,000. The percent change is 38.70%. And this budget category accounts for 2.18% of the entire budget.
Mr. Arcuri,
Yep.
Several years ago, the district secured insurance for ransomware.
Yes.
Has there been any change in the premium associated with that? And do any of these additional security measures impact that premium? And how big is that premium? It's probably not significant, but is there a change?
The cyber insurance premium has definitely increased. We are anticipating about a 20 to 22% increase from our cyber insurance carrier. That is because of the increased claims that are being seen by the school districts. Now, the more work we do allows us to not see a 40% increase like some of our colleagues saw this year. It's important to note we were one of the first districts to get cyber insurance. It is extremely important to also note that Mr. Esposito and his team are constantly staying ahead of the patch application, ahead of putting up the systems that will allow, when we fill the application out, to get the lowest premium increase possible. As long as we continue to bolster our systems, keep our firewall, keep our systems as current as they are, we will continue to see a lower premium rate increase than another neighboring district that might not be doing the proactive measures we are.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Curry, with the technology piece, are there still any dollars remaining from the Smart Schools Bond Act that the district has? And if so, what are those funds being used for? Thanks.
That is a great question. We actually just received, Mr. Esposito put out the RFP, and it was opened on Friday. It pertained to additional network infrastructure upgrades. It was about $350. We have about $355 or $54,000 left, and the project came in around $351,000. Now, it's important to note we have completed a portion of our Smart Schools Bond Act project. However, the state hasn't finalized the paperwork yet. So even though we have finished our network switch upgrade, by doing that type of an upgrade allows us to increase the version of our software, which keeps us at the cutting edge of being able to apply the most latest patches. So as long as you could continue to apply the latest patches, you could continue to stay aggressive towards the a cyber attack. So it's important to note that the Smart Schools Bond Act funding not only increased the entire infrastructure's ability to support the K-12 Chromebook program, as well as the staff using the equipment, but it also allowed us to increase the cybersecurity protection also.
Thank you.
You
So,
should
Carrie, when
see
you-
that, excuse me for 1 second, you should see that bid award coming inside of a future meeting.
Terrific.
When you look at the percentage change, would you consider that cyclic in nature, or is that going to be our base kind of moving forward?
I am not, it's going to be a little bit less, but for the next 2 years, as we have to add 2 additional lease payments in, you're going to see increases. We hoped, there is a 5-year plan. 2012 was the last time we did a full infrastructure upgrade, which was a little bit more than $1.2 million, $2 million program.
2000 and what? I'm sorry.
2012. 2000, thought I heard something. 2012, it was a track and technology proposition paid for with the prior year state aid. So things are coming to their useful life. Do I anticipate seeing those type of increases? No, but I will say that as we add the 2 additional lease payments in, and as software licensing and software maintenance continues to increase, we will see an increase, but we should not see an increase of 38%, more around 25 to 27. But as I mentioned earlier, we did have to put in an $88,000 new maintenance contract related to the district's video surveillance and door access system. Since that will be inside of the future budget numbers, we should not see as great of an increase.
Thank you.
Curriculum and staff development category, ongoing professional development, conferences, workshops, subscriptions, decreases related to one-time equipment purchases, smart furniture for the middle school, curriculum development, writers and consultants, as well as supplies and materials. This particular category is $345,236. As I had mentioned, decreases related to one-time equipment purchases. In this particular category, we did not need to keep the equipment lines as high as it was. Reducing those lines provides us a savings. So there isn't a loss of service, there isn't a loss of staff development, there isn't a loss of forward progression. It's just we don't need to purchase the same amount of equipment. This particular category sees a decrease of about $53,740, 13.47%, and this particular portion of the budget is 0.42% of the entire budget.
Mr. Carey, silly
Yep.
question, but why does furniture show up in a curriculum and staff development?
You see it because it's at it's all by a function code. The furniture, it is related to,
Oh, smart boards? Okay.
it is going to be desks, student desk. It's just the way the
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
the governmental chart of accounts puts those
Okay,
codes.
which is interesting. All right, thank
There
you.
really isn't a different category for it to really go to. We could bury it into district-wide expenses, but since it has a direct impact on the program, it is coded here.
Okay, thank you.
The athletics category, program maintains all teams from 21-22, high school 41 teams, middle school 25 teams. For anyone that might go back to the 2020, to the budget presentation from last year, you will see that high school reflected 45 teams. Between Mr. Passamonte and myself, we cannot figure out how it ever showed 45 teams. So the previous year's budget presentation is the a budget that had the incorrect value in it. We had 41 teams. We don't know how it changed. I know the numbers there, but we must have counted something wrong for that for that presentation. So if anyone's looking at that, we didn't consolidate a team. The previous budget presentation had the error. Very important to point out, 274 scholar athletes. That is a 17% increase over the previous year. And we had a modified athletic season for 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, reduction in one-time equipment purchases. We don't need to purchase middle school field netting again. We don't need to purchase volleyball standards again. So all of the years that we've been purchasing equipment to bring things up to its current state, we are able to pull back on some of the equipment dollars. Recurring purchases, uniforms, athletic supplies and materials, equipment purchases, Section 11 officials and administration fees, and other related expenses necessary to operate the athletic program. And the budget allows for reconditioning and disinfecting of all district-owned equipment. This particular category is $263,716. The dollar decrease is $65,757, which is a little bit less than a 20% increase. And this particular category is 0.32% of the entire budget. Community programs, pre-K through grade 12 student programs. Remember, community program starts July 1st, 2021. So when I'm giving you the numbers, we are giving you the numbers based on the information that we have today for 21-22. Historically, I would have given you the numbers for 2021, but since majority of the community programs did not run in 2021 due to COVID-19 pandemic, this year I chose to work with the community programs department to come up with what are the registrants to date, what are the anticipated registrants based on information that we have gathered for the upcoming spring programs. It does not include programs for summer of 22 because that's in the 22-23 budget. So there's 22 programs offered, pre-K through 12. Elementary students, 832 registrants. Secondary students, 535 registrants. Adult education programs, 6 programs are offered. Adults, 156 registrants for this school year. Summer programs, round out, 170 to 180 registrants for this summer's round out program. That number seems a little bit low. It is a little bit low compared to different years, but it still was a COVID year. It was still, parents might have been a little bit, the thought is parents were a little reluctant to send the kids in. We don't anticipate that to be the same for this coming summer. Music Institute, 40 to 45 registrants. This school year, the programs offered have been greatly reduced due to COVID-19. The budget provides funding for all programs to return in 22-23 school year. With regard to community programs, the total proposed budget without salaries is $133,310. On April 12th, you'll see a presentation related to the revenue budget. Whatever the total value of community programs is inside the expenditure budget, there's an offsetting revenue inside of the revenue budget to show that it is it is meant and budgeted and operates as a self-sustaining program. The fees raised from the registration costs cover the cost to operate the program. Shows a slight increase of $12,210 or 10.08%. It is a very small portion of the budget, 0.16%. Health services. This particular category pertains to the nursing services. Services from 21-22 remain the same. School physician and nurse services, health services for parentally placed students, athletic and annual physicals for students, equipment maintenance and replacement. The increase that you see for this school year is purchase of new audiometers for each building and supplies and materials. This category is $133,858. As I mentioned, the increase of $7,281 relates to the new audiometers, and it's a 5.75% increase, and it also is 0.16% of the budget. We are almost at 100%. We're down to the last category, personnel. The recruitment, training, and evaluation of staff. This particular budget covers the online application system known as OLAS. It covers advertising, covers this substitute teacher service called, I believe, ASOP, and it covers our Affordable Care Act consultant. The increase of $750 relates primarily to contractual increases related to the services. This particular category is 0.09% of the total budget. Looking at the budget in summary format, before we start here, does anyone have any questions on any of the categories presented since March 8th?
We spoke at the audit committee several weeks ago about some unfunded mandates that are coming down. There's a new consultant that we're going to need to secure in the upcoming year. Where does that come in which category?
That would have come in under the district-wide expenses for outside contractual services. That would have come in at the March 15th meeting.
District-wide expenses.
Yes, that is going to be related to where your auditors are, where your legal team is. That is going to be an outside service in order to calculate and project the lease exposure for a district. As the external auditor mentioned, that is now a mandate from the state that the external auditors cannot do the lease spreadsheets, the leasing worksheets. The district cannot do the lease worksheets. An outside consultant needs to do the lease worksheets.
Right, and we'll have additional leases because of the Chromebooks, so it
We will.
definitely impacts us more. Yeah.
The impact, but I also want to point out the dollar value of the lease is what's going to, what I understand to date, what's going to drive the cost. So we aren't leasing school buses. We aren't leasing a fleet of vehicles. So this Governmental Accounting Standards Board change, known as a GASB change, it just doesn't hit schools. It hits townships, it hits counties, it hits all governmental agencies. So they still haven't figured out a way. We have 5 different leases here, from a copier lease to a printer lease to a few Chromebook leases. That is the extent of our leases. But if you go to the town of Brookhaven, where they might be leasing a larger fleet of vehicles, so this is in the infancy stage. From what we know today, it should cost us, for our size lease, $250 to $350 per lease to do the projections. But even the final language of how to do the calculation has not been provided to us, but yet we need to provide funding for what the potential cost could be. So it's another well-thought-out unfunded mandate.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So looking at this particular summary worksheet, it covers that the expenditure budget reflects a 2.95% increase, as I mentioned earlier, but now looking at how do we cover the cost of the expenditure budget. The tax levy is currently at a 1.5943% increase, which is $886,784. I say as it stands today. The reason why, one of the components of the tax levy limit calculation pertains to building aid. If building aid, the value provided to us on January 18th, 2022 in the executive budget, changes in the final budget, then our tax levy limit number could change. Well, it will change. Whether we change our tax levies, a different question. So if our building aid increases, then our tax levy limit will decrease because our state aid will increase. So the tax levy has the potential to change on April 12th, as well as state aid. The $15,080,503 reflects a 50% return of the gap inside of foundation aid. It also includes the building aid number provided in the executive budget. If building aid increases and any other aid categories increase, then our state aid will go up, and the possibility exists that we will reduce the appropriated fund balance. That's usually where we don't anticipate it to be a very large swing, but those two categories definitely have a possibility of changing. Other local revenue pretty much locked down. We have gotten no notifications that any of our pilots are going to change for 22-23. They do have the ability to make those changes at any point. They could notify us in September, as they did a couple of years back. But we will go into great detail of all of the components of other local revenue at the April 12th meeting. We hold presenting revenue to after the state adopts their budget, so that the details are only shown once. It just proves to be a better approach for that. Appropriating fund balance, we are appropriating $4,852,011. That will come from surplus funds out of the 21-22 budget. The reduction in the $1,701,321, which was one-time use, as I mentioned in previous meetings, when the school year ended in 1920, that school year we didn't know what state aid was going to be, how state aid was going to be. There were COVID savings because the district closed early, had to go to remote learning. The district retained that savings. It quickly gave it back to the taxpayer in the 21-22 school year. That was a one-time use. It's not something that we should ever anticipate seeing again, unless if crazy circumstances present themselves again. Employee retirement system reserve, we are increasing the use of that reserve by a little less than $400,000. We are using for the first time funds in the teachers retirement system reserve of $500,000. Unemployment reserve, you see a reduction inside the use of that reserve, primarily, as I had previously mentioned. Unemployment reserve use is a derivative of what we anticipate our maximum exposure could be based on the staff that could be applying for unemployment. In 21-22, we had all the teachers from going to opening up the Briarcliff building. There were a lot of staff that we had anticipated on letting go, so the unemployment budget was higher. This year it is a little bit less. The unemployment reserve, if the money isn't used because the expenses are not incurred, the money goes right back to that reserve at the end of the school year. And workers' compensation reserve, we are using $550,000. Workers' compensation rates continue to increase, and since we have the funds inside the reserve account, we will utilize those funds to keep the exposure off of the taxpayers.
When you say use and utilize, you mean to set the budget, not necessarily as an expenditure. It's just, right, just to be clear.
We are applying it to offset the expenditure cost. And for this particular workers' compensation, we anticipate using it all because our this year's premium is about $548,000. So we are right there on. Okay. It's the unemployment reserve that I do not anticipate using all of the funds for. Anyone have any questions on the expenditure budget, how the expenditure budget is balanced against the revenue budget? Okay, we're going to move on to Proposition 2, the May 2022 capital projects proposition. During the December 16th Space and Facilities meeting, There were a number of capital projects presented. After an extensive discussion on each, the recommendation of the committee was to renovate 2 high school art classrooms, room 116 and room 118, and renovate the high school auxiliary gym into a physical health and wellness center. The work to the funds needed to complete this work does not come from the taxpayers. There's no cost to the taxpayer. It's being funded from funds within the tax reduction reserve, which contains the settlement claims from the prior year's state aid claim. So there'll be no additional cost to the taxpayer. The total project is not to exceed $2,898,040. High school art rooms, all the casework, the ceiling, the walls, they are original to the building. They're all going to be removed. They're going to be replaced. Over the past 3 years, an average of 114 ninth grade students have taken at least one class in an art room. Over the past 3 years, an average of 209 high school students take at least one class inside of an art room. Outlined there are the visual art pathways. High school art rooms, the project scope, remove all the caseworks, the sinks, the drop ceilings, light fixtures, HVAC, ductwork, floor tiles, interior walls, reconfigure the space to maximize functionality. Smart furniture will replace fixed casework when possible, and the renovated space will have a direct impact on the student learning environment. We have definitely seen when we upgrade a classroom, when we renovate a space, whether it has been an elementary classroom, whether it's been a Mac lab inside of the high school, whether it's the Academic Success Center, you clearly see the students gravitating to the new space, and you clearly see how it impacts the learning inside those spaces. Just a few pictures for those of you that haven't seen the space.
You said these are original to the building, which is circa 1972?
Right about that time. Probably close to that.
50-year birthday. 50-year birthday.
And room 118.
50 years. Got 50 years out of it.
Renovate the high school auxiliary gym to a physical health and wellness center. The auxiliary gym is directly linked to the lifetime activities strand of the physical education program. The primary components of this program are Pilates, yoga, weight training, and cardio exercises. Since the lifetime activities program began in 2018-19 school year, there has been a steady rise in the popularity of the program. In the current school year, there are 256 students that are enrolled in the lifetime activities program. In addition to the physical education program, the athletic program could also benefit from renovating the auxiliary gym. A physical health and wellness center with the proper equipment is critical to the development of a successful strength and conditioning program that could benefit student athletes. And over the past 3 years, an average of 49% of the high school students, approximately 330 students, participate on either a varsity or junior varsity athletic team on an annual basis. Renovate the auxiliary gym to the Physical Health and Wellness Center. The plan is to renovate the existing gym previously used for the wrestling and other activities, so it will function as a physical health and wellness center. The Physical Health and Wellness Center will serve as a multi-use space, physical education and athletics, a new HVAC system with air conditioning, a new sound system, interlocking rubber floor in the section where the fixed equipment is located, folding partition wall, and a set of perimeter wall pads. The infrastructure to allow for the connection of a mobile smart board to support the instruction will also be installed. Just a few pictures. These are the interior HVAC units. There are 2. They are no longer going to be inside the space. They're going to rooftop units, and it's going to make the space, 1, a lot quieter, and 2, allow for the system to operate a lot more efficiently. Are there any questions on the capital proposition 2?
Is BBS, the district architect, still in the process of working on the design?
They have provided a first draft of the renderings. There is a follow-up meeting for the art rooms at the end of this week, and we are still working on the auxiliary gym. Typically, we don't finalize the drawings, the renderings. We get to a point where you have enough to get a solid budget. Then we sit and hold, wait till the taxpayers provide the authorization to utilize the funds, and then we hit the ground running after the voter approval to get the finalized plans up to the state October, hoping for a January, February approval in order to get out to bid early. It's critical lately with these long lead time items, as well as the increase in cost, that we're definitely seeing the earlier you could get out to bid, the better pricing that you're getting, and also more importantly, the better chance you have of completing the project in time for the start of school opening. So I think we're in a good place with the design of these spaces, and barring SED slowing down, going back to a 6-month approval process, we should be in a great place to bid this project in early January. Only a couple more times you have to hear it. To read the ballot language that the voters will see, shall the Board of Education of the Shoreham-Wading River Central School District be authorized pursuant to Chapter 298 of the Laws of New York of the 2008 to use funds at no additional cost to the taxpayer from the Tax Reduction Reserve Fund, which was established by the Board of Education on June 17, 2008, via Resolution 0708-216, and contains the prior year state aid funds for the following purposes and projects: renovate high school art classroom number 116, renovate high school art classroom number 118, renovate the high school auxiliary gym into a physical health and wellness center, and any ancillary related work, furnishings, and equipment that are incidental to said projects in an amount not to exceed $2,898,040. So the next budget development meeting is on April 12th, where we are hopeful that the state will finalize their budget and the revenue budget will be presented, and it is also the night of budget adoption. All of our past presentations can be found on the district's website. And again, it's important to not forget that there's still the legislative committee has 4 very active priorities: fulfill commitments to fully fund foundation aid for our schools. As I had mentioned earlier, they did restore 50% of the of our full foundation aid, and according to what they've approved, they say they're going to give us the next 50% in 22-23. So that has been accounted for. 23-24. We have 22-23, and then we hope to get the remaining 50% in 23-24. As someone mentioned earlier, no more unfunded mandates. So the legislative committee continues to work on that as a priority. Suspend annual professional performance review legislation, and continue to fund the mental health resources.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
I know that the heading is just budget development dates, but typically there is some community outreach as far as, I'm assuming once the budget is approved by the board or adopted, then there'll be some community outreach. Any idea of the?
They're all going to be on the April 12th. I could tell you that I am presenting April 25th via Zoom to Shoreham Civic, April 26th here, April 27th to the PTO and PTA, and I believe possibly even April 28th to Wading River Civic. So they're all on, since this is the budget development calendar.
No, I understand.
The public presentation calendar will be part of the April 12th meeting.
Just in case people want to make some time out of their schedule to attend, it's nice to have some.
That's something
earlier
that
than
maybe we could put on the district website too. I mean, I definitely have it ready. The chart is finished. The appointments are made. I've been given time at both of the civics, which was wonderful. Leisure Glenn still does not have the palate to have me back. I can't understand why. The 3 people that are tired of hearing about the budget, I guess. But we definitely tried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arcuri, for all your hard work in developing this solid budget, and to everyone in the district involved and the Board of Education. The enhancements to our programs are certainly exciting, and all the work that was done to just use the federal grant-funded enhancements to the fullest extent, that work is certainly appreciated and dovetails so nicely in with all of our curriculum enhancements as well. So thank you very much. Next, we have votes and resolutions. Can I get a motion to approve the February 1st regular public session minutes? Rob, second. Henry, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0. Approval of the CPSC, CSE, and 504 meeting summary, March 9th. Can I get a motion? Megan, second. Rob, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0. Approval of the January 22 Treasurer's Report, motion. Rob, second. Megan, any discussion or question? All in favor? 7-0. Can I get a motion to accept the policies for first read? Policies 2000, 2100, 2110, 2110-1, 2111, and 2111.1. Rob, second. Henry. And then Mrs. Mahoney, can you read the memo for these policies, please?
Yes, thank you. On March 17, 2022, the Policy Committee reviewed the following policies. Number 2000, Board Operational Goals. This is a new policy, and as it was the first policy for the category, it was agreed that it's necessary to adopt. Policy number 2100, School Board Legal Status. It would be replacing district policy number 1110, school district and board legal status. It was recommended for adoption to replace our current policy as it explains what the board is legally allowed to do, and our current policy has not been updated since 2009. Policy number 2110, School Board Powers and Duties. This policy corresponds with District Policy 1120, Board Authority. It would be replacing that. It was recommended for adoption to replace our current district policy as it is current, and the district policy has not been updated since 2009. Policy number 2110.1, School Board Access to Information and Reports. This is a new policy. It was discussed how a trustee could obtain information with support for the board, with support of the board for non-agenda items. It was suggested to request information through the Office of the Superintendent instead of the Records Access Officer, so the superintendent is aware of what is being requested. Policy number 2111, Board Member Authority. This policy would replace our current district policy 1340, Principals for School Board Members. It was recommended to adopt as the NISBA policy is current, and the district policy has not been updated since 2009. Policy number 2111.1, Board Member School Visits. This is a new policy recommended for adoption. It gives guidelines as to how a board member could visit a school building, and it was suggested that there would be a change to notify the superintendent instead of the building principal in advance of a school building visit.
I like that change.
Just to clarify the last one, I know we discussed it in policy, but it's only when you're attending a building on official board business. If you're there, obviously as a parent, there's no reason to, reach out to the superintendent or to the building principal. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. And all of these policies, in reading through them, they really do reflect our board best practices document and what we currently do in practice, I believe. Any further discussion or questions? Okay to vote. All in favor? 7-0. Next, we have 3 Board of Education resolutions. Is it okay to take these as a block? Can I get a motion to approve 197 through 199? Rob, second. Henry. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0. We have 3 curriculum instruction resolutions. Is it okay to take these as a block? 200 through 202. Can I get a motion to approve? Rob, second. Megan, any discussion or questions?
I have a
Yes.
discussion for 21-22-202.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our second year in awarding for universal pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, did we receive multiple bids or interests in the program? I don't recall.
I believe last year we received 2 responses to the RFP, one being incomplete, and funding out of the realm what was possible, so the cost was too high, so in essence, we had it down to 1. Been a great partnership with St. Anselm's to date this school year. I know that myself, Mr. Meinster, Ms. Von Eschen, Smith, the district school psychologist, been over there multiple times to watch instruction, watch students in there, so happy to see that they responded again for that. And we'll have more information, Mr. Perez, at the end of the school year on student performance in the program, as we do. UPK programs require a benchmark in fall and a benchmark at the end of the school year, per New York State, SEL growth and early literacy skills, but additionally, our students in the UPK program will go through the regular kindergarten screening. So certainly take a look at that, and working with our partners at St. Anselm's, who've been great partners, look for any changes or improvements that we might need to make as we move forward.
So, I mean, the data that we can gather from them prior to the students entering our district, I know we do our usual pre-screening, but is there any feedback that we can provide them going forward with regard to their program and how well it aligns with ours?
Sure, absolutely. That'll be part of the end-of-year evaluation, their curriculum, and certainly how our students fare in our internal district screening process. Give that feedback back to St. Anselm's to see where they may have places for change, strengthening in the end.
Okay, that's great.
Just
Thank
two questions. Is this, are we still running this off of grant? Is this going to be a future program that we're going to be doing every year?
This will be fully grant funded. The New York State UPK funding is somewhere around $173,000, and the remaining portion of that, we should have the contract in front of the board in a couple of meetings, so we can start the lottery process.
So it's still lottery-based?
Yeah, it'll be lottery-based. We have a scheduled timeline for that, but the contract should be on the April 12th meeting. I want to estimate there'll be somewhere around $40,000 of the CRISA or ESSER funding that we will apply towards this for next school year. And as Mr. Arcuri pointed out, when we get into 23 and 24, the ARP and ESSER federal grant dollars, pandemic recovery, which can be used for UPK, is going away. At that point, we'll have 107. Let's see, because a lot of lobbying is happening to raise the per-student award from the state, which isn't quite enough anywhere to cover the tuition for a student for 180 days for 5 hours a day. But at that point, we'll have to consider the remaining funding, outside of the state funding in the budget. But for next year, we're good. All federal grant funded, and New York State grant funded.
Are we required to go out to RFP every year? I mean, can we award a multi-year contract? Is it like other services where we could
We have a
internally, extend the contract?
In this RFP, we did request and receive funding for 2 years. I think perhaps in year 2 of this RFP was a 5% increase from St. Anselm's over the proposed values for this year. But awarding it for 1 year does give us the flexibility to consider the award for the second year. And then, I've never seen UPK funding being pulled back from a school district once they get it, but it is relying on state aid. It's a state aid program.
I'm just envisioning we're building rapport with
Yes.
the organization, that, we're trying to
Be nice to have the
create
lottery.
communication, and
Yeah.
just,
I'm
it would make
sure-
sense every other year to kind of change out if we didn't have to.
Yeah, and it makes sense to do the lottery sooner than later too, for as well.
Is the size of the cohort smaller just because of the 5% increase, or?
The funding is connected to an individual student sitting in an individual seat for 5 hours a day for 100, so it's really, either you have a student there or you don't have a student
Okay.
there. So it's
That's good.
the state's dollar value in the UPK grant for our district is $5,400 per student, hence you get the $173,000, 32 times 5,400, with no option, must be lottery-based, can't be half-day program, full-time. But it's been great for the 32 students that were in the lottery. It's been great to have them in there, and we'll come back with some feedback on how the students fared and for the students as they move into the school system.
Did that answer your question, Tom? I noticed you had your
It
hand
did.
up.
The
Okay.
questions got answered through the
Okay.
conversation.
Great.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Okay to vote? All in
No, you're
favor?
good.
7-0. We have 12 business and operations resolutions. Is it okay to take these as a block? We have 203 through, sorry, I'll grab the end of this here. 214. Can I get a motion? Jim, second Henry. Any discussion or questions?
Yes, please.
Just a question on, it's just a quick question on 203. I know it says change order. I know opening it up, it's actually a credit. I don't know if we can, it's always nice to see credits, and
Negative change order.
when someone reads it, the change order, I don't know if we can add the terminology, credit change order, just sounds nicer, get money back for once.
Mhm.
Okay.
Put parentheses, throw you.
That's it.
Any further discussion or
I do.
questions?
On 2122, 213, the approved FS-10, the only question I had, look, I appreciate everything that's gone into this. Here's a question, though. The monies that were approved on the submittal, how does that match or not match what the funding was given to the district? Because it looked like it was a lower amount that was submitted. Is that right? That's the only thing I wanted to confirm. When I looked at the submittal,
Yes, what this particular resolution's showing you is that the total grant funds amount was $1,677,000.
Yep.
And in order for the State Education Department to finalize the processing of our building permit, they wanted to see confirmation via a resolution that the portion pertaining to purchase services code 40 pertaining to the construction of the outdoor learning environments in the amount of $1,254,000 has been reviewed by the board, approved by the board. So we didn't have to bring, if we are using the grant funds to pay salaries for a psychologist, that was already approved when the entire grant had been applied for. But since we are using a portion of the funds to go to the building department, they want to see always a resolution. So there's only a portion that needed specific board approval. The items that I showed you on the first slide of tonight's presentation make up the other $400,000 that were where the other
Okay,
funds
so
are
this-
being spent.
okay, I understand. So the physical structures need to be pulled out separately from the staffing and other,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Does that box up to the funding allocations then from, because I know there are different buckets. So the buckets that we're approving here are specific to the state funds, not the federal funds, or both? Is it both federal and state?
Press.
The federal funds, but all the federal funds are handed out to districts via the state's auditing and grants process, which is aligned to the federal government's requirements for that process. So they are ensuring that the state's complying to the federal government, and then making sure that we're complying with those,
Okay.
through that. So this had gone through the full value of those grants. If you recall, there were 3 federal grant streams. The last one was ARP, I think. It was about $2.4 million. So, the Academic Success Center, summer programming, remediation services, enhancements, the outdoor field, all of that. And I think what Mr. Kerr was saying, that whole use of those grant funds, which we shared publicly at a couple of meetings,
Yep.
was approved by the state in line with the federal requirements. But once it got to the building permit part of facilities, they asked for a resolution.
Understand.
to support.
Okay, so the funding allocations, the American Rescue Plan was $572,506. The Coronavirus Response and Relief Act was $1,939,253, so $2,511,759. And we're approving the $1.2 million and change on this FS10, which is related to the physical structures that we're building. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay to vote, all in favor?
Yep.
7-0. Next, we have our personnel agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the personnel agenda? Tom, second Henry. Any discussion or questions?
Nope.
All in favor? 7-0. Just want to take a moment to congratulate our humanities director, Nicole Wallbauer, on her receival of tenure. Mrs. Wallbauer has been instrumental in facilitating professional development of our social studies and English K-12 curriculum, and this curriculum is so responsive to the needs of the district's strategic goals and student needs. This year she's been working with high school committee implementing the seal of biliteracy. This amazing recognition of some of our seniors will now be a part of their graduation diploma going forward into SWR history. And it's been in the works for quite some time with Mrs. Wallbauer's seeing over this process. Our E&L students and their families know Mrs. Wallbauer very well, as she's worked to ensure equal access and success through our supportive programming and activities to the E&L population. And we're really lucky to have a director of humanities who is also an active member of LILAC, the Long Island Language Arts Council, which is evidence of your continual support of best practices and your innate drive to continuously learn. So we're looking forward to all that's on the horizon with your work in our district, and specifically the Seal of Civic Readiness too, which is going to be another feather in many of our students' caps. And we just appreciate your hard work, your tireless efforts. I can go on, but just wanted to thank you very much. If you don't mind coming up real quick, and we're going to need to take a photo without, Patty's not here anymore, but Stephanie will take a photo. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have communications from Mrs. Mahoney regarding the budget vote.
Thank you. I'm just going to read off some important future dates related to budget information. April 15, 2022 is the first day to obtain an absentee ballot application. April 18th is the first day to submit an absentee ballot application. April 18th is also the last day to hand in a candidate packet. April 20th, 2022 is the last date to submit a military voter registration application. April 21st, 2022 is the last date to submit a military ballot application. May 10, 2022 is the last date to submit an absentee ballot application. And of course, May 17, 2021 is the budget and election vote.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have any, do we have any further discussion? Nothing scheduled, okay. Additional comments from residents?
We do have one from Mr. Daniel Esquadro. Please just come up to the podium, state your name and address, and your topic you're speaking.
Thank you. I want to put my computer on top of your computer here. I apologize. Dan Lasquadro, 4 Upper Crossway, Shoreham. I did just have a couple of questions about elementary class sizes, because the information that I used to be able to find on the website about enrollment doesn't seem to be there. Is anybody, where I used to find it is now there's information for kindergarten registration there. So I know in the budget proposal, there were 8.8 full-time positions eliminated for the elementary grades. So I can only speak to, I know my daughter's class, she's currently in 1st grade, they have around about 150 students right now. So I know necessarily class sizes are going to increase because of the reduction of distancing requirements and such, but I was just wondering what the thresholds on class sizes are, because depending on how those 8.8 positions are spread out, with some of these numbers that I'm looking at with enrollment, these class sizes could increase quite significantly. And to the point of the budget, does the budget have the flexibility to add full-time teaching positions for increased enrollment? I know there are a number of houses that have recently sold. I know there is a family that's going to be moving into my block that has a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old who are moving in a couple of months. They will be here next year. So I know in the lower grades, we typically see an increase in these class sizes as we move forward. So again, with that reduction of 8.8 full-time positions in the elementary classes, what are the thresholds, if you have any in mind at this point, for the lower grades, say Miller Avenue, versus some of the higher grades, Wading River?
Mr. Poole can
Sure, and nice to see you, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for pointing that out. Those enrollment projections and this should be on the webpage. And if they're not there, I'll certainly go back and maybe that's been missed a couple times, but we'll get those up. Those Excel sheets that usually show the changes month by month. If you couldn't find them, then I'll certainly send you an email letting you know where they are. We don't anticipate any dramatic changes in class sizes related to where we were traditionally before the pandemic. There's certainly funding in the budget to make sure that we're at those similar levels that we were before the pandemic. This year, we're probably a student or 2 or 3 off of what normal class size
Yeah, certainly.
where normal class size would be. I have the feeling right now that Miller Avenue will make use of every room available and have a teacher in every room available next year. If kindergarten continues to grow, we may be at be looking at a music art and art room even to make sure the class sizes are down. But I'm happy to send you an email with the latest projections and give you a sense of where the class sizes would be for next year. But we've been somewhere around pre-pandemic, I want to say 20, 21, 22, somewhere around there. Expect those are very similar numbers.
Absolutely, and that's why I was concerned, because I was looking at, say, just again, I know what my daughter's grade is. If you were to take 2 sections right now, if that class, if 1st grade went down to 6 sections, right now at 150, you'd be at 25 students per class. If you just added 10 students to that class and it went up to 160, you'd be at 27 students per class. So, again, when I look at a reduction of 8.8 full-time teaching positions for elementary, I just want to make sure that those class sizes aren't projected to increase that dramatically, and I'm glad to hear you say that we're looking to maintain those pre-pandemic numbers.
One thing that may be misleading about the 8.8 is that is not a quid pro quo with the number of classrooms. Some of the special area teachers that were needed for the additional classes. So I'm certainly, but again, I will certainly send you those projections and answer the question. But we expect to be at very similar class sizes. No anticipation to get to 25, 26, 27.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And just to your the point earlier of unfunded mandates. I appreciated Mr. Curie's input there. You certainly are not the only ones impacted by that. I mean, thankfully, we do not lease vehicles either, because we use capital funds for that, and bonding dollars cannot be used to finance costs, I'm sure, as Mr. Curie knows. But we're seeing tremendous increases proposed right now in the New York State budget, even for something as simple as stormwater pollution prevention plan, what we call SWIP, that you have to do with every major building project. The proposal that New York State has as part of their budget right now that we're trying to get removed, that alone would add a tremendous cost to our local municipalities in just how we have to process those submissions. So you are not alone in the unfunded mandate department, and I've been speaking with our representatives about these and other issues, and hopefully some of those policy decisions, it seems, are going to be separated from the budget process and will be undertaken later in the session. At least that is what I've been hearing from my former colleagues in the state legislature. So hopefully many of these policy provisions that were put forward by the governor will be removed and be taken up by the legislature at a later date. At least we can hope so, and then we can have a chance to, put forward our case. Certainly not in such a truncated time frame as is the case with having a April 1st budget adoption for the state. So just wanted to pass that along because I know that is of great concern to all of us in government. But I thank you. I look forward to getting that information from you and seeing that information restored back up on the website. So thank you to all of you, and congratulations also to Ms. Wallbauer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for coming.
To drop something, I apologize.
Katie, can I just add that, just historically, I know this board and administration, if we ever had the influx of students, say in August, I know we've asked the administration to make those changes, Labor Day weekend to add classes. So I think we're very aware of the pre-pandemic numbers, and then that's we take pride in those low class size numbers, and I think we'll continue that moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We certainly look at those enrollment projections continually as the administration provides them to us even through the summer, and if and when changes are needed, then we certainly do have a board that is very supportive of keeping class sizes as low as possible. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Tom, second Mike, all in favor?